Thank you. Let's start. What will we speak of today? Very obvious stuff. Please follow the rules or you will be in the trouble. So I'll speak of these troubles and of ways to avoid these troubles. First of all, I'll explain a couple of terms, and after we'll just speak of a couple of factors leading to the problems. I'll explain a problem. After that, I'll provide some true metrics with serious calculations, and after that, we'll speak of suggested solutions to avoid it and to fix everything. So, let's start. There are two terms, necessary and enough. And these terms are necessary, and these two terms are enough. What am I speaking of? First of all, everything I'll try to describe here is related to the manual testing, to the functionality testing, but possibly it can be applied to other activities, to other departments, even to other spheres. Let's see. So, what is necessary? We are speaking of some product, some project, and some real requirements we have for it. Speaking of some calculator, it should summarize and do other arithmetical stuff. And if our application can do it, it's not ready, it needs some fixes, some work to do. And speaking of enough, if we are producing something which will be used by 2 or 3 special guys, we don't need to test possibility of thousands simultaneous logins. And there are two terms we won't use anymore, so let's speak of factors. I am a QA engineer, my presentation is about testing, so we'll speak of tests. And I will ask 3 questions. And let's start from the first one. Will any test versioning be needed? And before I'll answer it, please someone let me know what is test versioning. QA engineers are here, I know it, definitely. So what is test versioning? One more attempt, please, somebody. Just an opinion, you can be wrong. Oh.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to mimic to be as a QA developer, QA engineer, because I'm a developer. And we have faced something like this and we needed the test versioning, so my guess is that sometimes your requirements are changing, and at this point you have to kind of support 2 kinds of versioning, and sometimes maybe the new requirement fails and something happens with it, and you have to test simultaneously, and sometimes you have to support it, etc., etc.
If there won't be any questions for me, I'll ask for price for you. Yes, absolutely. You have 2 versions, 2 different formulas or something like that. And you have the only one test, which should cover 2 different or 2 common solutions. But I'll answer no. We don't need any test versioning. It's too hard for us. And the second question, it's about test hierarchy. What does it mean? So we have possibility to put some label on our test. This test is related to this functional error, this test to this one, etc. Or put all the other our tests to different folders. This test, this group of tests is about logging in, this group of tests about metrics calculations, etc., etc. So we don't need it. We'll put all the tests in the single folder. That's enough. And the third, about possibility to adjust tests. What does it mean? For example, we are updating some formula, and it will be good to have possibility to just open already existing test and edit this formula according to the changes. But let's say we'll add screenshots to our tests, and it won't be possible just to edit formula. We need to open some editor to edit our picture. So we have these answers. And let's speak of our problems we'll face with. First of all, if you don't have test versioning, that means we don't have valid tests at all. For example, we have current version, our application is working, some users are logged into it and are spending their money using this application. And we have some formula. Useful, we have some metric which is displayed using this formula. But we know that the next year some new law will be applied and this formula will be changed. Of course, we are smart guys. We already implemented it in another QA environment and applied this formula. And we don't have any test versioning. We have the only one test. So this test describes, let me say, Formula 1 or Formula 2, it doesn't matter, because this test is like a kind of philosophical Buridan's donkey. It looks at two similar haystacks. It doesn't know which haystack to select, and it dies because of hunger. So, because the only one test can be applied to two different formulas. And speaking of problems we'll have after that, how do you think? What can be wrong after we have the only one test and two different solutions? Any ideas, please, please? I said that you need a special guy who will ask prepared questions. Oh, thank you, thank you. Here is.
We can have a mess in the test execution processes when you see the results of the other tests and you don't know where it was tested.
Or we can create a defect report.
Without any version and also don't know where it was tested.
Yes. And we may just create a defect report saying that in a production, in current version, our updated formula is not applied, but it shouldn't be applied yet. Speaking of haystacks, another one metaphor. If we don't have any labeling or marking on or hierarchy for our tests, we are not able to find tests, to edit tests. So let me explain, please. We are updating formula, but in the most of cases, it's not the single one test. It's a group of tests related to the calculations, to the rounding rules, to the front-end stuff like font we apply, size, and place where this value is displayed in user interface. Dozen of different tests. And if we don't have any marking, any testing hierarchy, we should find each test manually to update it according to the updated requirements. So it's even not an attempt to find a needle in a haystack. We don't know the exact number of needles we need to find here, because we can find a couple of tests, update them, but there is something related to the rounding rules or to the front-end like font size, and this test is not updated, and we have the same problem. We'll create a defect report which is not a defect report, or we'll pass the test, and there is a defect in a production, my favorite part, of course. So let's speak of beautiful charts. Please look at that. They'll show you how to save your time. Speaking of 120 tests, it's not a big number for a huge project. Yes, we can have thousands of tests. And you are trying to update 120 tests manually. So let's say it will take 1 minute just to find tests you need. You set some search request, find this test, update formula inside on something like that. Another test, another 100 tests, just find each one manually. But if you have some marking like functional error or maybe something related to this exact formula or something related just to these pop-up screens, if you have, I think, both hierarchy and labeling, at least something, it will be much more easy just to display all the tests you need. And the main thing here, that you will be sure that all the tests you need are already displayed and you won't skip something. Everything will be perfect. So, speaking of 120 tests, you will save 8 hours, 1 working day, and possibly you will be able to spend this day on a mountain or on the seashore. What do you like more? It depends. So you will be able to save 8 hours. It's a working day. That's why I choose this 120 tests, because it's about 8 hours. And speaking of invalid defects, what does it mean? Your test is not updated, formula is already changed, and you are creating defect report. Dear development team, please fix it as soon as possible, because this formula is invalid. And developers, they believe in us when we are saying we have a defect. So you said that you are a developer. Yes. What are they doing? They are trying to fix it as soon as possible, because QA engineers do this stuff. So they fix it. We are testing it, and let's imagine that person who is testing is not the person who created this defect report, and this person is a little bit more professional, let's say, and he or she understands, oh, why did you do it? It shouldn't be fixed. It's not even a defect. Please revert everything back. So what do we have? We have Sisyphus labor. A lot of people are creating defect reports, fixing, and understand that it's not a defect and we should move back. So speaking of time spent by QA engineers, by developers, maybe by DevOps for all these new versions delivering, from 3 to 6 invalid defect reports. Of course, I am speaking of 8 hours. All the charts are related to the 8 hours. Approximately 4 invalid defects. It's a working day. So if you won't create invalid defects, you will save a lot of time for real work. So we discussed a couple of problems, and it will be fair to speak of solutions. It's not an ultimate way to fix everything, to save everyone, but at least you will be able to avoid these problems. First of all, the main thing, the main reason of this presentation, existence. Please, if you are test lead or not a test lead, create test policy, or ask your test lead to create a test policy, or ask anyone, just please create test policy. But that's not enough, because if it just exists, a lot of guys can say, oh yeah, we have test policy, it's beautiful, I've heard of it. But if it's not applied, nothing will be good, because everyone should follow the rules, everyone should know that rules exist, and test leads must check it. Maybe monthly, maybe weekly, it depends on. But test policies should exist and must be always applied. And speaking of tests, it's obvious, but I had a spoiler that I'll speak of obvious stuff, so I'm sorry. Please create adjustable, version it, mark tests, to have possibility find all the tests you need by one click, to have possibility edit your tests quickly but with enough quality. And it will help you in the future, and it will help your colleagues. And the last thing is related to the links. So let's imagine we didn't update our test somehow by some accident. But if our test contains link for some real specification, like up-to-date design, the newest design, and you are trying to create defect report, you are clicking on it, and after that you are opening design, and you can see that current solution is the same as required, but someone didn't update the test. So it really can help, but if only requirements or design are really updated. Anyway, it's the middle of my presentation, so we are moving. We have very good pace, and you are perfect public. Of course, I forget to say it before I start. We have tests, we have people who are interacting with this kind of documentation. And again, I have 3 questions. And first one is related to test review. So let's say we have QA team, 3 QA engineers, 3 senior QA engineers, because we have a very serious project, we are very good at it. And your colleague, senior QA engineer, 10, 12 years of experience, covered some new requirement. Should you check him or her? Anyway, should we check it? And my answer is no. Why? We have enough knowledge and our colleagues are great. Let them do what they do. We won't check everything. Second question is related to the test structure. What does it mean? Any document, not even test, anything, has some structure. Header, body, footer, some marks, some specified items. And should we have some kind of rule describing test structure? Preconditions, steps to reproduce this basic stuff. Or all we are artists, are poets, and we should and must have possibility to do what we want to do. Should we have some freedom here? So no. So we should have freedom, and the structure shouldn't be described in details. And the third part, my favorite one, yes, because I'm really fond of all the education stuff and internship and onboarding. So I love it so much, I can't answer no, but let's keep it. Speaking of tests review activities, let's imagine that we just added one small column to our application, to our table, and 3 available values for this column. User is logged in, logged out, or terminated, disabled. And somehow our colleague was too serious for this task and created 30 different tests. But we understand that 4 is enough here. Yes, value 1, value 2, value 3, and switching of values. If I'm wrong, sorry. But our colleague created 30 different tests to show how important is this task. So our colleague is holding a true sledgehammer and is going to crack small nut by this sledgehammer. So it's time to ask a question for you. How do you think? In this case, in this situation I described, what's a main problem? It's shown on a slide, but please answer me. Of course, absolutely. That's a trick. Your eyes are perfect, and your answer is perfect, of course. So, obviously, there are possibilities of opposite situations that there are no enough tests. But I decided to use this example. It doesn't matter how experienced your colleague is. To be honest, the main thing here that in case of different people with different background, different experience, are checking the same documentation, from the one hand, you can find some issues because you're a QA engineer, you are looking for issues everywhere, I'm pretty sure. But from the other side, you really can have some new experience to check some possibilities which can be suggested by other persons only, and it's even better than just to have what we have. And another chat. Let's imagine that unreviewed group of tests takes 6 hours to proceed them. And review takes around 3 hours. Check all the tests, edit all the tests, and delete half of them. And in this case, you will spend 6 hours for the first iteration in both cases. So you have a lot of tests to proceed, and it will take 6 hours. Or you spend 3 hours for review and 3 more hours to execution. But 3 iterations later, you will have 8 hours difference. So you can review tests once, and because of a lot of serious QA stuff like regression testing or user acceptance testing, and if this group of tests is presenting in this testing activity, you will save a lot of time. And speaking of learning from mistakes, I have this experience when the team really using unreviewed tests, and it has a kind of 4 or 5 iterations, a lot of hours, and after this number of iterations only, these tests were reviewed, and really the half of tests was removed. It was done, it's good. It was done too late, not good. But anyway, we have what we have. Let's continue. My favorite part. About balance, about harmony. Let's imagine that because of our unreviewed test or something like that, your colleague wrote a poem, true poem, with a lot of words in it. True way, not steps to reproduce, real traveling to reproduce. And after that, a lot of action steps and very detailed expected result. But there is a problem. If you have not divided tests, not separated tests, long text, you will spend a lot of time, and your focus will be lost. And it's a problem, it's an issue. And it's like an ancient, what a wheel called Scylla, which is just taking you, testing ship, and your ships are drawn, and you can't find an issue just because you can't read this test. But it's about not necessary activities. Speaking of not enough activities, it's very simple. You have just test containing something like try to update your password and set invalid one, unverified, something like that. So do we need to check capital, small letters, number of letters, minimum number, maximum, something? What should we check? I set 1. This test is passed because password 1 is validated. It doesn't matter that password 1 to 3 is okay for this application. So it's not a water wheel, it's real sea snake, which is hungry, which is angry, which is pure evil. It's called Charybdis, another ancient stuff. So what should we do? We should find balance, and we should pass between Scylla and Charybdis to have good result, good quality, and we still should follow the estimations. It's necessary too. And the last part, it's about onboarding, and I'm thinking of a separate presentation about onboarding. I'll just say a couple of words here. To have onboarding, you spend a lot of time to create it, to implement it, to support it, to do a lot of stuff. With each newcomer, you are going through it. But it's much more better when someone is learning from other guys' mistakes. Because if someone learning from his or her own mistakes, what do we have? We have some issues, some problems, and it's much more better to predict it and to avoid it. And it's much more better than someone spending a week or two just to check, to use something about functional error, about business demand. Because even if your newcomer is a real senior K engineer, but if previous activity was related to something like plain engineering interfaces, and you are working on health insurance applications, there is a problem. This engineer obviously knew a lot of all the testing theory, STQB certifications, etc., but functionality error is the main stuff here. Business domain knowledge is the main stuff here. And if your onboarding includes something except of testing, something related to your business domain, your functional area, it will be very helpful. And another chart, of course, about 8 hours. It's not really easy to calculate onboarding efficiency. But let's say during onboarding, your newcomer can read your testing policies, for example. can check how do you want tests to be written, or require a test structure, how to create defect report, how to ensure that it's a valid one defect report. So, speaking of 15% efficiency, 12, not 12, but 200 hours of working activities will save you, of course, 8 hours. Everything is about 8 hours. So, solutions. First one, the same. Please create test policy. This test policy will also contain some information about test structure, about onboarding process maybe. And don't forget that testing policy should be created and must be applied. After that, it doesn't matter who is included to your team. Even if you have a lot of experience and your colleague is just starting, test review activity is necessary part to have exact quality of your activities. And even if you are absolutely confident that your tests are perfect, please show this test to someone. Maybe this person just say, oh, your tests are perfect and I'll learn to create a good test. It's good enough too. So, the last one. Please, I think it will be in a year, visit my next presentation and I will provide you a lot of information about onboarding. As a conclusion, third time I'm saying, please create test policy. Please apply test policy. It's really, really important. Second conclusion is about preparation activities. Please don't try to save your working hours by skipping preparation activities, because they really have huge impact on the final quality. And it's first phrase in my presentation and its last phrase in my presentation. I don't remember it, I'll read it. Spending time at the beginning leads to the saving in the long run. So, thank you.